belli belli, fermo qua, musi musi, fuori lo spa, pigliati.
Marche Pride, Verdicchio Pride, actually not only Verdicchio. I'm presenting these three wine, not because I am lazy, but because I'll try as much as we're trying as much as we can to link bottles with bottles, land, to trying to create a cultural geolocalization. What we're talking about, it's not just about the single bottle itself; it's what's behind it, where is placed this bottle, who is making it, how is related also with other winemakers and with the tradition and with the land. Verdicchio has been produced there for hundreds of years. Has been spoiled by a production of some industrial winemakers maybe in the 60s. There was a big winery that somehow gave an idea of Verdicchio as an easy drinking wine that cannot be aged. We mainly thank people like Ampelio Bucci that at the beginning, middle of the 80s, invested in the concept that Verdicchio could be a wine that could be aged. Has been followed by Garofoli, by La Monacesca, and a few other wineries that now became a big established wine. I don't buy those wines because those wines you can find it everywhere, and I like to invest in younger tradition or maybe less known, more sideways type of tradition. And this is a beautiful example. All these guys are really young, under their 40s. This is 32 years old, Riccardo Baldi. No, this is 32 years old, Riccardo Baldi. Then you have Roberto and Giovanni, that are like 35, and Filippo is 32. Filippo and Alessandra, they're running the winery, a beautiful couple. They decided to move from two bigger cities, Ferrara and Ravenna, when they were 24 years old, and reinvented their life completely. And it's something that it moves me, someone that says, okay, I'm going to go back to a countryside, and so on. And the story of these two are incredible. This is the sparkling version, and the still version, level 1 and level 2. These two wines are made just for us. You can see that they are their name. We want to focus more than the wine than the name. Most of the wines are not filtered. You will recognize this beautiful salty finish almost in all of them. And there is a bit of a wildness due to the fact that they are not filtered here. You can see that there are some sediments in the bottle. If you turn it around, it becomes blur. I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, can you see it? Yeah. Same thing as this one here. So I would say that these two, they have in common this idea of this yeasty flavor. So you would expect something that is different for what wine is for you. But let me tell you something. Once upon a time, wines were more like this, than super filtered and chemically controlled the type of wine we used to drink now, especially when we talk about white wines. In this one here, you have a bit more subtle type of Verdicchio, and here you have a sparkling wine that is more similar to what we usually drink, but not as yeasty. You don't have that strong bakery type of flavor that sometimes you have in cheap champagne or cheap imitation champagne. It's not high acidity, but a beautiful, nice, salty finish. All these wines, I would guess, are a beautiful aperitif. If you are lucky enough that you are a member of Wine Club 1 and Wine Club 2, it will be a beautiful night to try all this together. Maybe starting from this, followed by this, and finish with this one here. Being really patient. Thank you. Can you cry for a plant? Can you risk your life for a plant? And according to the Manca sister, yes. And everything happened a year ago. We were in Romagna, the northern part of Sardinia. I tasted this wine for the first time a couple of years ago. These are new winemakers. When I talk about new winemakers in Sardinia, I talk about new. So it means that maybe this winemaker has been producing wine with his family for maybe 100 years, even more, but it's new because it's the first time they bottle it. He bottled it. She, in this case, female, two sisters, Noemi and Alessia, with the help of Giampaolo, which is Alessia's husband. And I was shocked when I tried their white wine and the red wine. I thought that was like a wilder version of a Châteauneuf-du-Pape. The grape variety is Cannonau. The locals call it Retagliato Niedu. I love how every grape variety has a local type of name. Think about Nebbiolo, no? It can be called Schianna, Chiavennasca, or Nebbiolo, or the different biotype, Lampier, Rosé, Miché. So the fact that every grape variety gets a local dialect and it's been transformed, and they pretend, and sometimes most of the time they're right, that the grape variety in that specific place has a different flavor, maybe because it's been master selected during the centuries and the years, and so somehow the idea of Chardonnay, Cabernet, Merlot doesn't really make sense there. It's the Romangia retagliato niente. In this case, we're talking about Vermentino. Vermentino, to me, has been always, especially in the 90s, has been completely misplaced. And a lot of Vermentino has been over-filtered, no soul. Wines are, ideal if you are in a cheap resort on the Amalfi Coast, in the Ligurian Cinque Terre, or you are in Costa Smeralda in Sardinia. And so the Vermentino, to me, has never been interpreted on a local basis, and I think that Dettori, which is the producer that brought us to the Manca sister, and these two ladies are at the moment possibly the only two that are making a traditional, if this makes sense, Vermentino in Sardinia. This makes sense because technically Vermentino comes from Liguria. The Vermentino in this specific case has a completely different shape. The idea of letting it go, skin contact. There is a big issue today. We're talking about orange wines a lot of time. We probably don't really understand what does that actually mean. The idea that you keep the wine in contact with the skin, because the skin has got a lot of elements. Sometimes skin contact orange wines can be overly contact in the sense that the wine tastes almost like a beer, I would say. So you need to be careful with that. And I think they are really good in finding the right moment. This 2001 to me is incredible. The way he's developed this wine in the bottle is like beyond magic. Is getting more and more to this beautiful fruity and salty flavor, nice spicy, white pepper. You have a lot of this Mediterranean flavor. You're like smelling the sea inside, and it's got, I call it, it's almost an albine red. I don't remember, it's 15 degrees in alcohol, this wine, so be careful, drink it slowly. It can go with any possible fat fish. Codfish is great, swordfish is great. It can even go with like a cacio e pepe pasta or with Parmigiano. Of course, it can go even with lighter fish like sea bass or red prawns, but the spectrum of this wine is so wide and so complex that it's unique. Why I said that these ladies are crying for plants and risking their lives for plants. You can see it in the video. There is a certain moment that I ask, what is that plant over there? There was like a branch, like a dead plant, and it said, and Noemi said, well, 2 years ago, we got rid of 60, 70 of those old plants that were planted by my grandfather because we had to build up the new cellar. And then she started to cry. And then Alessia started to cry, and I think we all started to cry. And I said, well, why we are crying? We are crying for a plant. And actually what makes no sense at the beginning, after the interview and after the tasting, made a lot of sense. How these ladies, these people are strongly related with that area, and how the plants are somehow so significant with the capacity to create a link with the tradition in the soil. Yeah. The second time, it actually, a month ago, we were like in mid of August, and they said there is a tragedy. Someone has been starting a fire there on purpose. There's assholes in south of Italy that they do this for strange reason. Maybe they have a conflict with the neighbor, or for economic reason, or whatever, just crazy guys. And so there was this fire, and he started to attach the vineyard of the Manca sister. And Giampaolo said, Alessia, my wife, literally jumped into the fire to save the plants. So 2 little tiny women with the strength of 10 men risked their life to make us possible to drink this bottle. Beside the quality of the wine, this is a family that I want to support beyond, and they're doing. And Mamoiada Renaissance. Mamoiada is a little village, not so little, it's 2,000 inhabitants actually, in the middle of Sardinia. Before I was talking about Neoneli. So it's a bigger version of Neoneli that has been doing slightly more steps. Neoneli, it's a rebirth, let's say. Mamoiada, I think already we can consider it an official and a kind of well-known wine region. Well-known for experts, for sure. Most of the people don't even know where Mamoiada is. That's where Mamutones are, which is one of the oldest European rituals. Probably is more than 3,000 years old. January 17, they wear this dark mask. But you can see all this thing in the video, so I don't need to say anything more. And and I think it's a beautiful El Dorado. It's heaven for a sommelier because you're discovering there are more than 250 winemakers there. At the moment, there are 35 that are bottling. Every year, someone else is actually bottling. Decided to take the vineyard and put it in a bottle instead of sell it as a bulk wine. But sometimes the bulk wine is even better than the one in the bottle. So to me, I just have to decide which one I want to support. And we need to thank actually, there are 4 from Amoyada. There is also Viche Viche, è vero. Let's start from Viche Viche. First of all, we're talking about an area that is between 700 to 800 meters on the sea level, so 2,400 feet on the sea level, so it's cooler climate, even though Sardinia is usually, as a stereotype, represented as a warm region, especially in summer, of course, but it's actually there is snow, Gennargentu. It's an incredible environment. The landscape is beautiful. When it's really clean, you can even see the seaside. But you have to consider it's a mountain, we have the beautiful small oak tree forest. You have the Nuragos that are these old archaeological sites. Some of them are 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years old. There are those caves with some little frescoes that brings you back to a tradition that is even before Greeks. Someone says Phoenician arrived there, but then they found recently, 40 years ago, they found a ziggurat, which is a pyramid that is more than 6,000 years old. So probably there were not Phoenicians there. And Sardinians are so proud about this because they don't even consider themselves Italian. They consider themselves like something else, something that is, when they go to Italy, they say, we go in the continent, we don't go to Italy, it's like somewhere else. And of course, this has been developed, local tradition that were not completely corrupted by globalization. So you can still find wines that go back in time when you taste them. And you have this strong fruity flavor. Let me give you a bit of a background. We're talking about Cannonau. Cannonau is the Italian name of Grenache. There was a big discussion where Cannonau is coming from. Is it from France? Is it from Spain? We exported Cannonau in Sardinia from Spain in the 16th century. The French said, no, we did it in the 15th century. But then they found a jar with seeds of Cannonau that is 3,000 years old. So I'm sorry, Grenache comes from Sardinia. It doesn't come from Spain and France. They're really proud of this. And so now I've been putting a lot. This year we have 3 for this is for the wine club level 2, including Rizzoli, and this is for wine club level 1. But trust me, you will be really, really embarrassed to choose which one do you prefer of these wines. The average quality is astonishing. Almost every wine you pick up there is actually incredible. Even if you knock on the door of a garage, you will find a wine that at least is good. At least is unique. And that we say that as an average, we could say that these wines has a strong spicy flavor, nice ripe fruit flavor, slightly alcohol, it can be high now, 15 degrees in alcohol, 15, I don't even remember this one here, and this is another, no, this is 14, this is slightly lighter. So consider these wines, you need to have a heavy barbecue here. I don't know, this is a wine that needs a bit of a fat, meat, something like strong and spicy. Beside all, if we can possibly give some description, here we have a really wild production. My friend Pier Graziano Sanna, he literally lives in his own cellar, which is not bigger than this room. And I said, okay, can I invite you for a tasting in my cellar? Yes, of course. Then the night, tonight, what about if you come at dinner in my villa? Okay. The villa was the cellar. So you joking? No, I live here. He literally lives on his own bottles. He cooked and he made for us an incredible wild boar stew that was hunted by him, and we had possibly the most ancestral and ritual possible. And his wines are so beautifully wild. He doesn't do any control of fermentation. He leaves the wine in a skin contact sometimes even for months, and it makes no sense because this wine should be vinegar, but it's incredible subtle, possible a unique masterpiece. The second one I'm going to go to is Simone from Cantine Sidilesu. It's not Cantine Sidilesu, it's called the Viche Viche, but he's the grandchild, or the nephew, of the Sidilesu winery, which is the big winery of that area. When we talk about big winery, we talk about 100,000 bottles. So this is not a big. He makes, I think, 10, 12,000 bottles. What I love about Simone, that his Cannonau are not as heavy as the others, a bit more elegant. His wife, Federica, has been studying in Burgundy, in Romane Conti winery, so not the last winery in the world. So he's making, they are making wines that are a bit more subtle, a bit more elegant, and they're developing, and I think they can age even for longer, we will see. And what I love more about Simone, that Simone brought us to Zappo, to this guy here. And so the fact that instead of promoting his wine, he's first started to promote his friends, another winery, it moved me so much that I will buy this wine even if it will not taste good in the future. No, I'm joking. But, you know, I love to support someone that is support also the region. This guy here, come si chiama il tipo che non mi ricordo? Ah, sì, Gianfranco Siotto, sorry, I forgot about his name, there are so many. He's the most shy person, and we tried this wine from the bar. I said, we love it, you have to bottle of it. 1,000 bottles we bought it. We own this winery now, and it's a beautiful, one of the best tasting I've done in our private, random tasting and I like the idea that somehow if this winery exists, it's because of us at the moment, and he's been so nice. He didn't really know, do I have to put a label? What do I have to write on the label? He was asking me questions that was like from nowhere. He didn't even know what does it mean bottling a wine, and so it's not his main job, of course. It's like his hobby, it's his part-time job, but he's putting a lot of. He actually, at the moment, this is a blend of 3 barrels. We are thinking about in the future to make 3 different labels for each barrel. It makes no sense economically wise, but maybe we'll do it. We do a lot of things that make no sense. And last but not least, Antonio Mele. If you see the video that we're going to publish soon about the Mamutones, he is the president of the Association of the Proloco of the Mamutones. He's the one that organized this incredible real world. January 17, all these young and old guys, they wear this scary mask, black mask, surrounded by all these bells. It's actually a suit that weighs weight more than 70 pounds, and they go all around the village. And everyone is so silent and strange, and then they get wild, and it's like you feel like you are going back 3,000 years in time. And there is a lot of rituals in Italy, but most of them, they became just folkloristic. You know, it's fake, a thing done for tourists. I can feel that the Mamutones ritual is still something that is lively and perceived and something linked with the soil. His wines are slightly, this is Vinera, this is for level 1. It's not as complex as level 2, but it's beautiful to drink. So this is a wine maybe not to age for long, but it's really, really well done. You can see that we bought the entire production with our private label. A lot of other things to say about Mamoyada is an endless, but I don't want to spoil everything. So follow us, watch our videos, and we'll learn more. Thank you. We are in the middle of nowhere, in a region called the Sardinia, which is an island in front of Rome, I would say. You probably know Sardinia. It is mainly famous for the most amazing seaside and beaches, and there is this sea that is like emerald and blue and is incredible. Not a lot of people know that Sardinia is, the Sardinian culture, you will mainly find it in the center. And you have these small villages that are completely detached by the coast, by the seaside. Mainly because we have to understand, same story is similar to the Calabrian tradition. The seaside was not really, it was a dangerous place. And so most of the Sardinians developed their culture in the inner part, especially on the higher hills and mountains of Gennargentu. Neoneli is exactly in the center of this beautiful island, and it's a village of 500 inhabitants and 150 winemakers. This means that everyone makes wine there, even every family has his own private vineyard, even dogs make wines. And it's amazing because nobody knows about it. If I know it, it's mainly because of my friend Dario Cappelloni. He is my weaver of Sardinian wines, and I need to thank him. I didn't even know this. I mean, after 25 years of tasting wines all over Italy, discovering a village that makes incredible. You know why we didn't know about it? Because nobody's bottling wine. They don't even sell it. They might sell it for a few dollars per liter if you pass by, but it's mainly their own production. entire Italy was like this 100 years ago, but mainly due to industrialization, to a lot of reasons. You know how did it work everywhere. We went to the cities, we abandoned our vineyards. Someone convinced us that the wine from the supermarket was better than the local wine. Someone convinced us to get rid of the older vineyards and plant a new one, to put a lot of sulfites. It was more convenient to put chemicals and fertilizer in the vineyard. So it was more about the quantity and quality. That's what happened. Take it or leave it. You know, but now it's time to rethink our way. How do we perceive an environment? There's no way we do that or we do that. And so the fact that we have a bit more awareness on how a winemaker is making his own wine, how is he respecting the environment. And when I arrived in Neoneli, I had possibly one of the best incredible nights. We did a beautiful video that will be published soon. We did a tour of more than 15 different wineries. It started from Mamoiada, going back to Neoneli. And those, like, you would see people from 30 years old to 95 years old making their own wine. Everyone, some of them were kind of a rustic, but they were so strongly culturally and geographically determined. All the wines had this huge Mediterranean flavor, which is the Mediterranean herbs, rosemary herbs, myrto, which is a local fruit, a blackberry that grows only in that island. And these three guys, Samuel, Paolo, and Salvatore, they literally are doing something that makes no sense. Yeah, I give you an example. They make less than 10,000 bottles, I think, and this 10,000 bottles is the result of more than 25 different vineyards. So it means that they rent or they bought a lot of little pieces of 90, 70, 80 years old vines, incredibly, which a blend of different grape varieties, mainly are Pascal and Cannonau. Cannonau is Grenache, but there are a lot of others that I don't even remember the name of them. Melavaxia, which is a white grape variety, and so it's also preserving a cultural biodiversity there. And the wines are incredible. I love them. And so they're starting to bottle them. They make like 3, 4. And these two, this is the younger vines and this is older vines, level 1 and level 2 of the wine club. This is actually, we made this wine with a winemaker. It means that we tasted more than 25 different bottles. And here this were one stainless steel Vasque and another one was a bottle, I think, the two. And this is actually a blend of 3 different bottles that are our favorite ones. So these wines, they don't exist. We made it for the wine club, and also, last but not least, we bought a vineyard there because they winemaker, they wanted to increase a bit the production, and they thought that there was a beautiful vineyard that was better than the others. They didn't have the money to buy it with a little house, and we decided we'll buy it for you, same as we did in Etna in Siotto. We're going to restore that house, and as a wine club members, you will have some free days when you can stay there and enjoy the wine directly from the source. You can pair these wines with anything that is related with meat, especially if they're a bit of a spicy meat, or tandoori chicken could be a nice pairing with these two wines, or some medium salty pecorino. Cheers. So Barolo Montanello 2019, and this is level 2 wine club. Fall 2023. We are in Castiglione Falletto. It's impossible to explain the complexity of Barolo in 4 or 5 minutes, and you can get all the information with all our videos. You just scroll all the videos we did on Barolo or in Barbaresco, especially. If you listen talking about that land by Luca Pasquero from Paitine or even Enrico Della Piana from Rizzi. What is actually incredible about the Langhe, the same grape variety has a lot of different versions based on the composition of the soil and based on the climate condition. So that's the place where most of my colleagues and myself would like to die, to have a last sip of wine is these 2 regions, Langhe and Burgundy, because there are 2 areas where they have been specifying, they were actually respecting the soil and created the concept of terroir, which is a beautiful word. Everyone is using it, but it's only a few places that you can really call terroir, because it takes hundreds of years to develop a concept of relationship within a grape variety, a human tradition, and complex climate and soil composition. Castiglione Falletto is one of the 10 villages that are allowed to produce Barolo, and I was so surprised to find this winemaker that is kind of unknown. You have to know that Barolo became really famous in the recent years. So for me, it was a surprise to have a beautiful traditional type of Barolo that was not part of the mass production and it was not already imported. We try to select wines that you cannot get anywhere else, especially in the US for our American friends. Most of the wines at the moment, I think we reached 60% of our labels are actually private wines. I don't want to call them private labels. Private wines, it means that a wine that are made with us and for us. It's a completely different concept, but I will talk about this in a different video. When we talk about traditional Barolo, we're talking about Barolo that doesn't have a high concentration, has a color that is more on the light ruby, more similar to an old Pinot Noir. The smell, the nose on the notes are more on the truffle, on the soil. You don't get a lot of ripe fruit. 2019 was a medium warm vintage, but despite that, Montanello will never reach really, really high concentration in the wine. You only use big barrels. You will never actually taste a strong oak flavor in it, so strongly tradition. You reveal a lot of the soil. It's like a rustic elegance in this wine. I love it because it tells you, and it actually is a wine that calls a pairing. I would say all over and over, that Barolo goes with the 36 months Parmigiano Reggiano. Actually better if it is a red cow. I love the idea that this guy is completely detached from the world. He doesn't care about ratings, about giving his wine to journalists. Whoever wants to know him, you have to go there, and it's not easy because he barely answers the phone. He doesn't answer to the emails. He's like the shyest person ever. What is actually fun is that when we do our videos, sometimes we struggle because sometimes winemakers, they don't want to speak. They're not used to stay in front of the camera. He was the worst possible actor ever because he's really shy. He didn't know what to say. This is soil, this is vineyard, whatever, that's the wine. And we were so embarrassed with like some minutes of silence editing a video. But at the end, he said something that, in my opinion, it represented the Langhe, how they are, more than any possible quote and sentence. You know that in Langhe, the cost of the land is rising. It's like you have to consider Langhe and Barolo and Barbaresco like a new gentrification of the countryside. Vineyards moved from $50,000 like 30 years ago, now for 2 acres, now is more over $1 million. And so you might understand sometimes the same winemakers, the same local farmers, they don't have the money to buy their own land. And at the end, we need to thank people like Montanello if we still have locals making wine there. For a simple reason, at the end of the video, you will notice that I asked a question to him and I said, but are you not scared that someone might come and offer you $10 million for this property and then you have to leave? And then he said, oh yes, if they offer me $10 million, I can realize my dream. And what's your dream? Buying a land like this. So it's a beautiful paradigm in saying that somehow he already achieved what he wanted and nobody can buy him, no matter how much money you're going to offer him. He's 65 years old, he has his family, he doesn't really need it. So that's it. Cheers, and this is one that you could keep it maybe another year or two in the cellar, even 10 years, but I think it's ready to drink even now. Thank you. Contucci, if you have been a member of this wine club for more than a couple of years, you probably remember perfectly this winery. This has been an iconic winery of our restaurant and of our wine club. Possibly the first video that I have ever done. Then I started those rough videos. Giulia and Armando were not helping me yet, and I was just alone with my little video camera. And I posted this video of Adamo, who is the cellar guy that has been working for the Contucci family for his entire life. He entered in that cellar when he was 16, and he's still kind of working there, and he's 86 right now. So it's totally, completely dedicated to an historical and I would say even archaeological winery in the southern east of Tuscany, Montepulciano. A lot of people confusing Montepulciano in Tuscany with the Montepulciano d'Abruzzo, which is a grape variety from south of Italy. They are completely two distinct, different things. I will explain that in a second. But by the way, going back to our Adamo and this video, I'm going to post it because I know it's really rough, but it tells you the passion of this guy and how he's strongly related with his roots. And his roots is not about being Tuscans. Be careful. Those guys are Etruscans. Etruscans is an ancient tradition that belongs, linked probably with the Greek culture, but it's a kind of a mysterious civilization that lived before the Roman Empire and that were defeated by the Roman Empire. Nevertheless, the Romans took a lot from the Etruscans, same thing they did with the Greek culture. You know, Roman is an empire that it was actually copying a lot from the place where they were conquering. And people that are Etruscan have an attachment to their roots even stronger than the Tuscans. A pride that I would say that goes beyond the concept of region. And you might actually listen to him a story that tells you how that the Etruscan somehow learned things about how to make wine that we're still somehow learning from them. You know, facing on south, southeast, or southwest, at a specific height on the sea level between 200 to 400 meters, which means 180 to 200, 350 meters, which means 300 up to 800, 900 feet more or less. And, you know, considering where to place the cellar, how cold has to be the cellar. And then when you visit the winery, you see that there is a link. We're talking about the oldest winery in the world. This is, I'm pretty sure. I know they don't want to pretend it, but I made some research. If it's not the oldest, this is one of the 3 oldest wineries in the world. You know how many years this family has been producing wine in the same cellar, in the same place, with the same vineyard? It's more than 1,010 years, probably even more. That's actually the only paper that tells that 1,008 years ago, they were making wine in the same place. And if you don't believe it, watch the video. And if you don't believe the video, go to visit them. And you will see the first bigger floor on the top side, which are frescoes from Andrea Pozzo, which was the mentor of the perspective of the Baroque time. 17, you have one of the oldest piano that was played by Beethoven. There are 30 left in the entire world. And then you go down to the cellar from the Middle Age, and then you go down in a stairs, like it looks like something, a Dan Brown book, and you are in a cellar that is from the year 1000. And when you speak with Alamano Contucci, you have this perception that centuries are like long weekends. You know, you perceive that their perception of time is different from ours. I'm not saying, when I ask a question to my clients and friends and say, what do you like about wine? They say, I like because it's fun, because it's diverse, that it's complex. But one of the things that comes, I like the history that is behind. And there is no place like this one here that tells you that history is important. Mainly because Tuscany has been strongly corrupted by tourism, and which is a good thing. People became more rich. You know, the countryside is surely more preserved than Calabria and other Italian regions. But the effect that sometimes they produce some Chianti, some Montalcino, and some Montepulciano, that they don't really follow the tradition. And so a lot of Cabernet, a lot of Chardonnay, a lot of Merlot, a lot of new oak barrels, flavors that actually give to the wine a bit strong international, a bit more homologated type of flavors. These guys, they don't do that because they have an heritage to respect. When Alamano and Andrea or Adamo have to make a decision in the cellar, they have to refer to those ancestors. I really remember Alamano saying, even I was trying at a certain point to follow the trend of planting some Merlot, but then I had some nightmares. I mean, my grandfather coming from the graveyard saying, what the fuck are you doing? And so I was like, you know, it's kind of a reverse Uncle Scrooge story. And here we have a Rosso di Montalcino. This is a really simple type of Prugnolo Gentile, which is a version of the Sangiovese. I don't have time to explain how every single grape variety has different brothers and sisters and siblings, which there is not just one Sangiovese. There is a big fight. They don't want to call it Sangiovese. It's blended with a bit of a Canoiolo, Mammolo, and Colorino to give a bit of elegance. Someone gives a bit of the color of it. This is an easy wine that I have to go with not too complex food. Okay, while this is Mulinvecchio, which is the cru. It's like, no, sorry, this is Pietra Rossa. Pietra Rossa means red soil, because also they make the cru of Mulinvecchio. Red soil, which is the typical soil of Siena. Soil of Siena is where the Etruscan used to plant the vineyard 2,500 years ago. And you probably recognize from the color and from the nose that you have this nice, beautiful clay, earthy flavor. Beside that, you have a bit of a red fruit. This is a wine that can go with any kind of game, and it could go even with some little stew, I would say, but of course, at the best pairing in some Pecorino di Pienza. Ivan Giuliani, Cantina Terenzuola. We are in Tuscany, close to the border of Liguria, and it's a beautiful area called between Massa Carrara. That's where actually the most famous marble from Renaissance. I guess that some of the Michelangelo sculptures were made from a marble from that area. It's not really well known as a wine region. We mainly know Tuscany and Liguria for different grape varieties like Sangiovese, Cinque Terre. You mainly have Bosco and Chaquetra. That area, it's not really well known, and I love to do sidewalks, and I love to discover wineries that are not on the main path, not already corrupted by marketing requests. Ivan Giuliani, to me, is a beautiful, skillful, and clever and creative type of guy. The passion he actually has in, paying attention of local tradition. He used to have, his family come from that, but he was actually living in near Milan as far as I remember. So he came back to his grandfather's house and he started an incredible research on local tradition. I'll give you a couple of examples. We talk a lot about grape varieties, and most of the time we talk about the usual, the Fab Five: Cabernet, Merlot, Chardonnay, Sauvignon, Pinot Noir. These are redundant, and this is because 85% of the wine production in the New World are based on those 4 or 5 grape varieties. But we don't even know how complex and incredible is the world of grape varieties. And we're losing them. And you have to think that before the phylloxera time in the 19th century, in the world there were probably more than 200,000 grape varieties. I think now there are not more than 6,000 left, which 30% are in Italy. But we don't even know that because genetical research are discovering new things recently. And let me tell you something. Ivan Giuliani, he made a test on DNA analysis of most of the grape varieties that are on his own land and now so far. And with the University of Pisa, as far as I remember, they discovered that there are more than 45 different local grape varieties that has never been registered. And this is actually the project of Permano, which means by hand, but it was also the name of the father of Ivan Giuliani. This is only 2,000 bottle production. Merla di Miniera is slightly more, level 1 and level 2. This is actually a vine that is growing on ex-coal mine. It's interesting, when you taste it, you have this kind of a dark type of flavor that reminds you a bit the soil with nice, beautiful black fruit. While here we have rhubarb. It's a completely different type of flavor. He gets some more complexity, slightly more on the spicy. Those two wines are, to me, a little masterpiece. And we're actually having a project of making our own production of one of those grape varieties, which was, do you remember what was the name of the 500 liters barrel we tried that we loved? I think about Roseleta, but Roseleta is from Veneto. Well, it's a unique type of wine that is going to make it only for us. I don't even know if we have the numbers to put it in the wine club. You need to come in New York or in Rome to taste it. So those wines to me are magic because they come from grape varieties that are rediscovered. They come from a project that is respecting the soil, creating a beautiful ecosystem. One and another thing that he discovered, Ivan Giuliani, reading all the papers of 150 years ago, that most of Tuscany, especially the northern and the southern side of Tuscany, was planted of Canaiolo and not Sangiovese. We always connect Tuscany with Sangiovese, but Sangiovese is almost a recent tradition. It used not to be like this. It has been actually developed because it was making more quantity than quality. So the fact that he's rediscovering a grape variety, to me, has an incredible complex potential. It's something that I want to support in any possible sense. Let me tell you last thing. The last project of Ivan Giuliani is in Cinque Terre. I don't know if you've not been Cinque Terre. It's the most beautiful place. Every tourist goes there, but nobody knows what is happening in Cinque Terre. You have these little villages surrounded by tourists, and then the land is collapsing. It's collapsing because nobody's taking care of these beautiful terraces that has been made through the centuries. And so his goal is to save a little village, and maybe with our crowdfunding we'll be part of this project. It's a vineyard and a little group of houses you can actually reach only by boat, and possibly one of the future will create a little place where we can host you if you are a member of the wine club. Thank you for your attention. Simone Scaletta, Wine Club 1, Wine Club 2, Dolcetto d'Alba and Barolo San Pietro from Monforte d'Alba. This is possibly one of the greatest discoveries I have done in Langhe. You know how much we love to find unknown, to discover little wineries. But while Sardinia or maybe even Basilicata or Campania, part of Sicily, some other regions, it's easy to discover new wineries. You have to think in Italy we have 150,000 winemakers. I'm not saying all of them are good, but I would say that there is a lot of people are going back to the countryside, and so this is the right moment to discover new wine. And we like to find a winemaker where it's not yet famous, is not yet corrupted by marketing reasons and labels or high rates from a wine journalist, so that we can buy the wine at a reasonable price for you, and on the same time we can work with them to maintain the quality and increase the quality. Because when you go to a winemaker and you tell them, I want to order 1,000 bottles, 2,000 bottles, you say, okay, wait a minute. Okay, we pay them in advance, and he says, okay, maybe I will take care of it. So I'm not going to blend this wine with some cheap grapes from south of Italy, and I will follow the rules and so on. And Simone Scaletta, now this is to say that when you go to Langhe, discovering a new winemaker is not easy. It's kind of a complex, because, it's a limited area, everyone knows it, so pricey, so gentrified. Now the land costs a lot. And so when we tasted, I was with my sommelier, I was with Lindsay, Julia, Armando, and Matt, which is the main sommelier here with Kenneth in New York. We fall in love with this wine that was suggested at Enoteca Saracca, which is a beautiful enoteca in Monforte Balba, a wine bar restaurant. We loved it, especially because we tried several vintages, 2006 and 8 and 12. So we went to visit the day after, and we saw this guy that was in the middle of nowhere. And why nobody knows you? It's not true that nobody knows him, but first of all, he was not imported in the U.S., so bingo, let's do it. Like, I can match it, wine club in New York, and in one time, not easy to find a winemaker that is not imported from Langhe in U.S. Second of all, we love the wine because they were so traditional, so tight. Traditional means, I don't know if you know the story of Barolo Boys, which is this group of modernist winemaker that decided to promote Barolo all over the world. We mainly thank or blame, it depends, a guy like Gaia or Elio Altare or Domenico Clerico. They used to be called Barolo Boys because they were, going on a van, they were learning English in a van, and so the people were making jokes of them. But if now Barolo is so famous, like it or not, we need to thank these people. Now, it's an endless discussion. The fact that some of them started to do a lot of experiments in high concentration with the Barolo, using maybe new small barrels that were giving to the wine a strong oaky flavor. And they were somehow, they were trying to follow maybe the American style of the modern wines. And so the issue is, like, at a certain point, the traditional said, where are we going? Maybe we should go back a bit. So as far as my approach on things is not necessarily to say they were wrong and they were right. It's about finding a balance in things. And this surely belongs to the concept of what is the neo-tradition, so going back a bit to the idea of a bigger barrel. We need to say also that sometimes the Barolo Boys were able to give some good suggestions. Maybe making a wine in a barrel that is 8 years old, that has never been properly cleaned, it's not the right way to make good wine. So it's a complex matter. But for sure, those wines are strongly, strongly traditionally determined. This is one of the oldest vineyards of Dolcetto. It's 90 years old. In my opinion, is the best. Dolcetto is an everyday type of wine. You will never expect to have complexity. Nice and plummy, period. Not a lot of complexity on the palate. When I tasted it, this is a Dolcetto with the soul of Nebbiolo. I don't know, it should be, because it's a 90 years old wine. And this is a beautiful Barolo, is Monforte, typically truffly, with this nice wet soil type of flavor. It goes with the truffle sauce if you have it. White truffle would be ideal. Otherwise, it can go with stew. We can go with any game. We can go with a nice beef steak. Parmigiano Reggiano is always a perfect pairing with Barolo, as I've been telling you for thousands of times in my tastings. Last, a little story about gentrification. We think about gentrification is related with Paris and London and New York and even Rome, but actually has to do also with land. I give you a couple of examples. I was talking about this, describing Montalcino. I think 2 acres of Barolo vineyard, they used to cost, like 40 years ago, maybe $10,000, $15,000. Now it's more than $1 million. It can go up to $5 million. Crazy, 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 crazy price that is affecting as an impact on the locals that is really strong. Everyone is happy, they have more money, but sometimes the locals, they don't have the money to buy their own land. And so may become investors from outside. And these investors, they are there to invest. So they are not really care if the wine is a traditional or not. And maybe they will start to ruin a bit the tradition and to make a wine that was not as good as before. Not as authentic, whatever authentic might means in the world of wine. So I like the story that this guy, his family used to own a vineyard there, and they sold it at the beginning of the 70s. They went to live in Turin, and he spent his entire life trying to rebuy his own land until he was able to buy the land, but not the house, and he lived in a caravan for 4 years. And I like this idea of Simone Scaletta living like a squatter in his own car in a place that is possibly one of the most richest country area of Italy, of the world. And then finally he was able to buy his own house, and now he has a beautiful place, and I love to support these guys. Cheers. 2 wines from the same winery, level 2 and level 1. This is a Sangiovese 100%, and this is a Sagrantino 100%. Diego Calcabrina is one of, whenever we go to do videos, we're always scared because winemakers in front of the camera, maybe they're not used, to speak with people. Sometimes we go in the middle of nowhere. Think about like a lost little village in Calabria, and nobody goes to visit them often, and so they're not really used to to speak. And Diego is one of those people, whenever I go there and I want to make a documentary, a little story, he is the director of himself. He's so passionate, the capacity that he has to transfer the passion he has about the wine, and especially he's an incredible cheese maker. He has a beautiful farm, and he will probably, we're going to visit him in a couple of weeks, because, no, not next week actually, he's probably going to be part of our wine program. I'm going to tell you what's the difference between the wine club and the wine program. The wine club is a selection of beautiful wine, in my opinion. The wine program is when we buy a piece of land or we are doing a wine together with the winemaker. The fact that we're buying the land means we buy the land, we give it back to the winemaker for free. As long as he starts the wine program with us, it means that he can take certain kind of risk and he can work on quality without thinking too much of the marketing, because we ensure the fact that we're going to buy the wine for him. And we're going to, of course, try to help him to do as best as he can. So I'm pretty sure we're going to start a nice interaction with Diego, because we already do all the cheeses you find at Roscioli, for example, are coming from his cheese factory. And this is a Foglio 61, which is 100% Sangiovese. Sangiovese, I used to say that is a kind of an old and nasty man. It's not an easy grape variety to deal with. It's been mainly developed in the 19th century because it produced more than other grape varieties. It's a beautiful study that even Giuliani did. He discovered, according to some papers from before the phylloxera time, so mid of the 19th century, that most of the production on northern and southern Tuscany and even in Umbria was mainly Canaiolo, not Sangiovese. So Sangiovese has been somehow overproduced. So you need to deal how to do it. He used to the fact that this wine is not filtered, the fact that he doesn't put any sulfites, and the fact that he is super taking care of the phenolic maturation of the skin. The ripeness of the skin have to be balanced with the ripeness of what is inside the grape. Sometimes we over-ripe the skin and we have a bit of tannins, and then you have not a mature juice inside. So you need to have a cool climate, you need to not to fertilize too much, and this is a completely biodynamic and organic producer. I think it doesn't put more than 15 sulfites in this bottle, and the wine is beautifully ripe on the nose with a nice tight finish at the end. This is a wine that have to go with a bone steak, T-bone steak, but it can go, I would guess, again, with medium mild cheese. Pecorino di Pienza is a beautiful example, or maybe a hard goat cheese from Calcabrina. Hopefully, if we're going to make a proper deal with him, we're going to have even some rooms in that area. People can go there and live like a beautiful week or a weekend spending in the countryside. You might have some free offer day if you remember a wine club. The other one is the Sagrantino. Sagrantino is a beautiful grape variety. It's a terrible grape variety, but this is a beautiful type of Sagrantino, mainly because the winemaker is a guy, Diego is one of the few producers that is telling you straight the truth. And I remember the first video that I did about Sagrantino from him is that this grape variety is not good. I'm sorry. I know that Sagrantino is famous all over Italy. It's getting famous all over the world, but it's a pain in the ass because it's a grape variety. You never get a proper tannic maturation and the ripeness. The skin is so tough. You don't know what to do it. And so he was able actually to, try to afford the Sagrantino on a sideway, not with a strong impact, using a lot of oak, maybe, trying to cover this problem of tannins. And it's about, I'm going to let it go, I'm going to let the wildness go and keep more on the fruit and make it slightly more balanced. maybe using a little bit of sugar content without adding sugars, of course. And this gives a version of Sagrantino slightly softer, strongly deep, nice and ripe at the end, a nice plummy flavor at the end. This is a wine that I wouldn't match with raw meat. I wouldn't match it with like a rare steak because it doesn't have to match with the metallic flavor because otherwise tannic and metallic are going to be in contrast. This I would go with a really spicy sausage. Something big, fat barbecue is ideal, and any kind of spicy and salty cheese would be perfect. I used to say that this video tasting notes are quite useless because in my opinion, the winemakers tells you more than, and the countryside tells you more about the wine than any possible word that I can explain. And especially when we come in terroir, so terroir determined, I would say. We are in Vulcano Etna, which is one of the most fascinating countryside and places of entire Italy. You have this huge, big energy coming from the Vulcano, and you perceive that this strange love and hate relationship people have with this destructive, but on the same time, incredible, fertile type of energy. Etna is a woman, according to Alice Bonaccorsi, and the way she described this energy is beautiful because she says, I feel that I need to get in touch. And there is something in Alice Bonaccorsi that gives, sometimes we listen to a lot of stories when interview winemakers. With Alice, I really perceive that she is like feeling the soil, feeling the place. She makes, in my opinion, one of the 2-3 more interesting type of wine of that area. You need to understand that Etna is being super colonized. There is another gentrification there. Vineyards that used to cost $10,000 per acre now is like $70,000, $80,000 in less than 10 years. And usually when prices rise up so fast, I mean, I'm here in a cellar in New York, and I can tell you, and especially for my New York friends, you know exactly what does it mean, It happens then the locals cannot afford themselves to live in that place and to make wine. For them it's more convenient to sell the vineyard to someone else. And that's what is happening. Is happening something that at the end, a foreigner is coming, people like me, they're coming from Milan, from Tuscany, from US, and they buy the land. And of course, they don't have the same sensitivity of a local to produce wine. That's why in our wine program, we are supporting the local winemakers. And we've been so far in supporting them, not just buying the wine and ensuring them we're going to buy like 1,000 bottles a year, 2,000 bottles a year, that sometimes for these winemakers maybe 30% of the wine production. But we even buying land for them. We happened with Siotto, which is a vineyard that is not so far from here. They're a smaller producer than Alice. Fortunately, Alice is famous enough and known enough, it doesn't need that kind of help from us. But I love to support the locals because Alice, with Siotto, with Bruno Ferrara Sardo, and a few others, are the only producer of Etna that comes from Etna. So I want to keep them there. I don't want them to, go away, and so that they maintain the type of quality. And also, we're talking about the vineyards that have to respect a certain type of parameters, mainly due to these beautiful terraces and these vineyards that are 70, 80, 100 years old. What happens when a big winery or a big investor comes there, the first thing he does, or she does, mainly male, I would say he does, is getting rid of the terraces, which is technically legal doing that because we're talking about a natural park that is protected. But they pay some fines, or maybe there's a bit of corruption, I don't know, but they do it. And then they get rid of the freestanding bush 100 years old vineyard and replant the vineyard with like a young one that doesn't have the same quality. I don't want to tell, and again the story, what does it mean having an old vineyard? It means longer roots that go deeply inside the soil, get the water even if it's not actually raining, which is an issue today, especially with global warming. So those vineyards are actually more adaptable to a climate condition that is going to be harder and harder in the next years. Especially in Etna, you can plant the vineyard now on a higher level, so cooler climate. Cruci Monaci, this is to me, whenever they say Burgundy, in Etna is the Burgundy or the Barolo of Sicily, this is possibly a beautiful representation. Strongly metallic, almost not a single hint of fruit. All the wine goes straight on a smoky flavor that is deeply the sense of drinking the blood of Vulcano. And it's like it's moving because every time I have a sip of this wine, I remember there is a pyramid of stones. You're going to see like there was a Virginia, Alice, and Lindsay on the top of this incredible pyramid that was created by farmers and winemakers over the last 1,000 years. And it's actually the biggest one because they were getting rid of the stones from the volcano and creating this pyramid. You have to consider that what is actually taking up, bringing life there is actually also the thing that is destroying life. Because when there is an eruption, every eruption takes at least 600 or 500 years, I think, to get fertile. But when it's fertile, then it's completely different. And another thing that I realized, that every eruption has a composition of magnesium and iron that is different. So every single eruption will give you a different environment, although because they are creating maybe amphitheater. So they are creating climate and soil conditions that are different one from the other. That's why I like to call this a cru. It's called the Cruci Monaci, but is actually a cru, is actually a single vineyard, is a 90 years old vineyard. It's a wine that is beautiful. Just prepare it with a beautiful tuna fish steak. And here we are in Tuscany. And as I said before, how sometimes I struggle with Sangiovese in the sense that it's difficult for me to identify, there's a lot of producers now in Tuscany, especially when we talk about Chianti. We talk about such a wide and a complex region that has never been strongly geolocalized in terms of terroir and composition of the soil. So again, when people ask me, who do you think about Chianti, it is about, what do you think about European or Asians, like Asians, Chinese, but even China is complex, or even Italian. It's like those big concepts, that is difficult to resume on a singular basis. And again, Americans from Midwest are different from, and so when we talk about Sangiovese, it's difficult to technically. We're talking about a grape variety. It usually has a little bit problem in the ripening factor. To me, is best. The quality of Sangiovese is in the most difficult climate condition. I'm talking about some, for example, Querciabella, the higher hills it usually gives you. And Bakkanali is a new project of two young guys that decided to revitalize from, I think it was one of the grandfather of the guy, era uno dei nonni. No.
No.
Or was it? I know, because they were there. Julia was there like recently.
It was an old man who wanted to.
He was an old man actually. So that was actually.
Met him. Very nice old man. I forgot his name now.
It's somehow similar the situation with the Puelle, there is always, or maybe we have with the other, what's the name of those guys down in Lazio we've been to? Sete, for example.
Yeah.
The idea there are these young guys, they want to go back, call them the neo-rurals, they go back to the countryside, they get in touch, maybe they have a grandfather or grandmother that left them a vineyard. In this specific case, they found a local, and they, with their help, with the help of the local, with the guy that has got a bit of experience of pruning the grape and the vineyard and so on, they build up a little project. We're talking about 3,000 bottles. I don't know how many bottles are there.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, Lindsay and Julia should talk about this one because they were in the vineyard a week ago. You were there,
Yeah.
And
It
was.
It's just their second year.
That's the second year. That's the second year production. The one I tried is like, it's a wine, it's really natural. I don't think they put any sulfates in the wine and no filtration. It's totally natural. They let it go.
It's two young guys, and one is an enologist from actually Podere.
Okay, that makes sense. So Podere Leripi, which is a famous producer in Montalcino. I like the idea of how Montalcino has created like some expats, some people that leave Montalcino because the land is too expensive, overly commercial, and they move to Montemmiata where it's a colder climate condition, maybe easier due to global warming, for example. So we might see that Montagliata is going to become the new Montalcino in the future. Actually, part of the Montalcino production involves even part of the Amiata mountain. We're talking about the higher hill, the other mountain of Tuscany, which is, you can even ski in Montagliata during winter. You used to, I don't know that last year it was really warm. This is a Sangiovese that is a bit more tight, nicely fruit on the nose, but with a bit nice tight acidity at the end. And to me, you have to match it with some Cinta Senese salami, which is impossible to find. So I would say dark pork, like could be pata negra, for example, jamón de bellota, the Spanish one, or if you have a chorizo, it's fine too. So when you actually go to Montalcino, you need to be wise. And I personally don't care about promoting big wineries because they don't need our help. And I don't really care about promoting wineries and maybe are doing some tricks in the cellar with maybe two new oak vanilla flavor type of wine, high concentration alcohol, too deep, too international style. And so when I founded the Poggiarellino family, I thought that is a gift from the gods because it's not easy to find a new winemaker. They're not new, but nobody knew them. So because they don't have a website, they barely answer on the phone. I think now Ludovico, he's 84 years old, and Anna, they're a beautiful, beautiful couple. And Nanda is 80, 81, 82. So they are in their age, and they're not teenager anymore. But they run the winery completely alone. And when immediately we tasted the wine, we felt like, oh, that's what his Montalcino used to be, with the ruby color, light ruby color, more on the Pinot Noir style. And you have this nice hints of little red fruits with a beautiful hint of clay and soil and wet soil. It's balanced, it's now very powerful, the alcohol is perfectly integrated. It's elegant. It's elegant and at the same time reminds you the rustic flavor of the Sangiovese. And those wines to me are absolutely exceptional. It's beautiful how every age is different. Here we're actually pairing two different ones. We have the Rosso di Montalcino and the Brunello. Rosso Montalcino is usually the little brother of Brunello. The main issue is maybe vineyards that are younger, not the high quality grape, and not the best quality grape, but they use it like as the second hand type of Montalcino. But sometimes Rosso Montalcino can be as good as Brunello, and I would say that the two wines here, you just feel a bit deft for the level 2 wine club and the level 1 wine club. So if you want a wine that is a bit more for game, for slightly more complex dishes, I will go for this. This is going more for like medium hard cheese and pork chops, but they are really, really good. If you are a member of both wine club, which is a high suggestion by my side, it's really interesting to compare the two wines. The first one we had was a Catalanesca del Monte Somma, and it represents like 100% the core of our wine program. Because I went to this winemaker, it was 12 years ago, and I saw possibly one of the most incredible biodiverse places in the world, mainly due to this incredible, beautiful, wild, and dangerous volcano called the Vesuvius. By the way, Vesuvius seems, according to anthropologists and local archaeologists, is the original name of Dionysus. So it was a wine dedicated to the god of wine. Catalanesca is not an interesting grape variety by itself. Might be slightly buttery, over fruity, but if you plant it outside of that area, it sucks. It stays like a fruit juice with alcohol. That salty, smoky finish gives the spine of the wine. That's what makes actually the wine unique. Okay. Besides that, I went to the winemaker and I thought that the wine was a bit too clean, and I asked him not to filter it, and I suggested him actually to age it in an amphora. And he selected a beautiful amphora from Lorenzo Tava, and we created our own private wine that is called Insumma, so that wine doesn't exist, so I hope you liked it. Mainly because there was a big misunderstanding. There is a strange story due to the fact that the Montepulciano is a Tuscan village. But Montepulciano d'Abruzzo is a grape variety that comes from south of Italy. It's a different grape variety, much more harder than Sangiovese, the one you have in Tuscany. Leathery, well done, yes. What else? Sottobosco, underwoods, Bark of a tree, I like it, yes. Mushroom, yes. This deep, dark, spicy, type of flavor, right? Clove, yes. We call them tertial aromas. These are usually aromas that come with the aging process. There is a bit of a plum too. I got, some like plummy flavor. But I like this perspective. If you were tasting this wine 2 years ago, this is 2019, taste this wine 2021, it would have been a fruit explosion. With the aging process, it's going to a completely different direction. Dries your teeth like a raw artichoke. That tannins. Montepulciano is a rough type of wine. It's like a strong type of wine. It can be, in some beautiful exception, I'm thinking about Valentini, De Fermo, Emilio Pepe, and especially with the long aging process, get more on a gentle side. Oh, I would never say that Montepulciano is a gentle wine, but for sure a wine that is a bit more integrated in the hard side and the fruity side. So again, a little suggestion, the spiciness. This can go with some game, this wine. Again, we can go with some barbecue. I wouldn't have it with tartare, for example. I wouldn't have it with the pigeon, with duck. I wouldn't have it with the soft cheese. Something slightly, they balance a bit. Something spicy, they balance a bit of the harshness of the tannin. Isn't it beautiful? Does the wine get sweeter? Without being, not sweeter in the some sugary, but softer. And you have that thing that, in my opinion, makes a great pairing. A great pairing usually is creating an endless experience of flavors in your palate, because your palate gets dry by the tannin, it's get rebalanced by the cheese, too much spicy, you make it sweet with the wine, and you go over and over.